Hello folks, welcome back to another JB's Comic Reviews, and today we're going to be going over Avengers number 245. Get the full cover and all of its action there. This is from July of 1984. Cover by Al Milgrom, which the cover's pretty cool. You've got the whole team there pictured. Al Milgrom did the cover. Captain Marvel there in the middle's got a really weird face. This is actually kind of a minor thing that happens in the comic, but they sort of made it a little bit bigger deal on the cover. But you could see one of the Wraiths there with a weapon similar to Rom's weapon, who's zapping Captain Marvel, which will take place in the issue. But yeah, her face is weird, but overall the art is cool. I like the art. The art's pretty unique. So good job there, Al. So yeah, as it says on the cover, Captain Marvel on the brink of oblivion. And the actual issue title is called Bombshells. This is Wraith War Part 17 of 35 on the reading order list I'm going through. There's a few other videos that'll be linked at the end of this that'll take you to issue number 16 or 16 and then 18 once I get that one done. So, we start off with Captain Marvel chasing down the rocket that took off at the end of the previous issue. It's now exiting the thermosphere. There's a slight recap of the events that took place in the previous issue. Captain Marvel decides to check in with the team before she decides what to do with this rocket. She's able to communicate, apparently, by releasing some of her energy in the form of radio waves. And then the rest of the team receives those. They've gathered at the space station's radio complex to receive her message. So this is sort of plot hole number one. We don't really get any reason why they would have gone over to the radio complex. They just happened to already be there when Captain Marvel uses her energy to communicate with them. So Captain Marvel, or Captain America, tells Captain Marvel to thoroughly check out the ship's interior. They think the Wasp may be on board, which we see at the end of the previous issue. She was sort of thrown back and pinned down inside of the rocket when the rocket took off. So Captain Marvel then travels through the window of the command room on the ship as a wave of light, which we could see here. So we see her flying through. She comes through the front window of the ship. We see, Dr. Cather at the controls, and she sort of thinks the man who designed the rocket, if it was known that he would have been there, she would have came through the cabin window as something other than light. And then I'll apologize for the blinding radiance later. First, I've got to see if I can find the Wasp. So she's looking for the Wasp. She's got the ability to sort of pass through objects, which the Vision has as well. But she does it a little bit differently by sort of transforming into a light beam. So she zooms past Dr. Cather. She's looking for the Wasp. She eventually finds the Wasp and then sort of wills herself back to human form now that she's inside of the rocket. And while chatting to the Wasp about what happened, Dr. Cather gets the jump on Captain Marvel and zaps her with some form of a weapon that makes her vanish. So she transforms. She's sort of dealing with the Wasp, but as Captain Marvel turns into she gets zapped. Here we can see the Wasp say no, and then caught in the energy discharge of the strange sidearm, the Avenger is gone in an instant. So this plays into the cover. A little bit different looking gun. On the cover, you see that the gun looks more like Rom's gun. This looks a little more round, but whatever. So she gets zapped and she's gone. Wasp thinks she's pretty much dead at this time. So we get a scene change. We're now in a snowy village in Transia, which actually is a fictitious European nation, which was first referenced actually back in Avengers number 36, which came out in 1974. So 10 years prior was when this Transia location was sort of dreamt up and brought into the comic book world. So we get Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, accompanied by Lockjaw, who were still looking for someone named Bova and have just stopped at some doctor's house and are asking about her. It seems that Lockjaw had picked up her scent, which determines or helps them determine that she's actually there, and then Quicksilver rushes in the house as soon as the doctor sort of greets them. He finds Bova in the back room. She looks to be sick, sort of in a hospital-looking bed. She has a look of a cow. I get it, bovine, duh, Bova. We learned she used to be a cow, but a scientist had actually transformed her into, quote, something more than human. And she was there, apparently, at Quicksilver's birth, so she's been a part of his life for a long period of time. Quicksilver asks what happened. He found Bova's cabin in ruins, which took place in the previous issue, and it seemed it was caused by Magneto, which is Quicksilver's dad. So that's this image here. So we see that, Quicksilver's sitting there. He sees Bova in this sort of hospital bed. I found the ruins of your cabin in the hills. You've been hurt. Who did this to you? I knew not his name at the time, but since I have learned it. He is called Magneto, and this pisses Quicksilver off because Magneto is Quicksilver's father, and he's sort of determined to make him pay for this. So it's interesting, this story is layered in as well as one other story. So this does not really have much to do with the prime story taking place in this comic around the Wraith War. We don't really see Lockjaw or Quicksilver doing anything is related to this story, but there is some subplots that are being layered in, and this is one of them. And there's also another one that we have that is related to Mockingbird and Hawkeye sort of looking for a new headquarters, which we'll get into in a minute. So we get a scene change. We're back in space. The Wasp is interrogating Dr. Cather. It seems he is a Wraith, and his sorceress sisters were actually closing in on them at the space station, and he decided to use the rocket as a means to escape. So if you didn't know, the sorceress Wraiths are the females, and they don't get along with the Wraiths, which are the males in the same group. So they sort of battle it out and try to kill each other. So he decides to use this rocket as a means to escape. The Wasp still has him at gunpoint, but pleads and explains that the ship's in a dangerous condition, which needs to be dealt with priority one. And then about this time, Captain Marvel shows up again. So we thought Captain Marvel was dead. She starts to appear through the floor. And here we could see the Wraith, or Dr. Cather in his Wraith form, sort of talking to the Wasp, and you cannot force me to return us to Earth. I could only fall into the hands of the Wraith sisters, and I'd rather die here than face them. As soon as the Wraith argues with the Wasp, neither of them are aware of the invisible energy form which slips into the cabin through the very substance of the deck. So we have Captain Marvel slipping back through, and she is not dead. So that lasted all of a page or two. So it seems that she wasn't killed, but when zapped with the ray gun, she said she turned herself into X-rays and passed through the floor to escape. Took her a few minutes to get her bearings back, and now she reappears. She goes unseen. So Dr. Cather and the Wasp don't really notice her phasing in and out. She keeps herself hidden, which she uses to her advantage to radio the rest of the team on Earth for help. This time it's Vision responding. So instead of Captain being at the radio controls receiving and responding, we've got Vision there. He wants Captain Marvel to hold tight for now. Vision discusses that the Star Drive engine, or he discusses the Star Drive engine with Star Fox. So apparently Star Fox is pretty well versed in this technology, and the rocket ship is struggling with a unstable engine. So it sounds like Star Fox is going to be the one to save the day here. So then Vision and Star Fox head off to intercept the rocket. Captain, Wanda, and the General are sort of left behind to keep a lookout for the sorceress female Wraiths that were supposedly closing in on Dr. Cather. So they've got the Psi Wraiths captured from the end of last issue, and they're hanging out there to sort of keep an eye out for any additional Wraiths. So we get a scene change, sorta. We see that Vision and Star Fox make it back to the bay where their yacht was anchored. You know, last issue they took their time coming up the bay on this yacht with all of the Avengers sort of on board, enjoying the sun and the fun. And then they start to see some shit go down at this space pad. So they engage. So they go back to the bay where their yacht was parked. And then here Star Fox dives into the water. And a minute or so later, he breaks the surface in a Quinjet. So this is the week story point part number 2. You know, they go back to the bay where their yacht's parked. Star Fox dives into the water. And then a couple seconds later, we see Star Fox come flying out of the water in a Quinjet. So why did they take the yacht here in the first place? How did the Quinjet get here? It's just sort of conveniently parked near them, but we get no explanation of how this could have taken place. So week part number 2. You know, I'm not really buying. Maybe this would have passed okay when I was a kiddo, but Roger, I needed a little more explanation now to see what the hell is going on here. So the Quinjet takes off. Vision phases through the hull to get on board, and Star Fox is sort of navigating. We get a scene change. We're back with the Captain and General Bridges at the Space Center. They're heading towards the isolation block where they have the remaining Psi Wraiths subdued, which took place before the rocket took off, or right at the end of right as the same time the rocket was taking off. They get to the lab, and then we see some sorceress Wraiths have actually infiltrated and killed the Psi Wraiths that they have captured. So here we see Captain, you know, just getting into the isolation chamber, and he says, "Good Lord." And then here we have the female Wraiths that are sitting there, you know, have murdered the Psi Wraiths that they had captured. "Come on in, human. You have nothing to fear from our Wraith brothers. As you can see, they've all expired." So here's a good visual between the differences of the two Wraiths when they transform. You know, the females being this sort of purple, crazy face looking version, and the Psi Wraiths being a little more, I guess, humanoid with a little bit different face structure and a little bit different color. So, after this, you know, Cap gets bear hugged by the General. Guess what? He's actually a sorceress Wraith himself. So Cap comments on the strength of her grip. So apparently these Wraiths, even though Captain's super strong, they do have strength that's not to be messed with, or to sort of comment on being weaker than normal. And then the additional Wraiths start moving in. So Cap does his best to defend himself. He's got, you know, the General / Wraith's arms wrapped around him, other Wraiths moving in, and we get a scene change. So we're back on the rocket. Wasp has Dr. Cather at gunpoint. They're arguing over shutting down the ship's engine. Vision actually phases through the hull at this time and joins them, sort of startling Dr. Cather. Star Fox docks the Quinjet to the rocket, and he also pops in and joins them. And then Vision has him to start to take a look at the engines to see if Star Fox can figure out why they're unstable. This ticks off Cather, who definitely doesn't want to go back to Earth. This causes him to shapeshift into more of a beast-like form, which I don't think I've seen before, and he bolts for Star Fox. So Here we see that Star Fox doesn't look so complex to me. Of course, there, that does it. All drive systems are down. Simple stuff. So this is easy peasy for Star Fox when it comes to repairing this. And here you can see Vision holding Dr. Cather in his Wraith form at bay. It's not over yet, Star Fox. We still have to return Dr. Cather to the Cape, and then here you see him transform. So he gets ticked. No, hell no. You're not going to take me back. Star Fox, I believe you were craving excitement. Well, here it is. So then he leaps towards Star Fox because he doesn't want him to actually repair the ship. And we could see that, they start to get into a skirmish here with Star Fox and Dr. Cather in this additional type of form that he's in. So the Wraith determines Star Fox is just a little too strong for him as they're skirmishing. And he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to win, so let me hit a button and blow the hatch on the rocket. So he's going to kill everyone, including himself. Captain Marvel shows up just in time. She's able to save the Wasp, which again is kind of weak. They're in space. The hatch door was just blown, and that's sort of an instant deal when you're sucked out. But apparently we've got enough time for Captain Marvel to scoop up the Wasp in an astronaut's helmet, and then hand her to the Vision before getting sucked out of the ship. So, here we see that. Take it easy, Jan, I got you. So she has an unsealed astronaut's helmet, which startles the Wasp. CM, where did you come from? No time now, Vision here. So she hands the helmet to Vision, but it's not sealed. So I don't really know, all the oxygen in that rocket is going to be sucked out as soon as that takes place. But apparently this is able to keep her alive. Realizing that the Vision has increased his mass to resist the rush of escaping air, Captain Marvel passes in the helmet. So I guess maybe he's holding the helmet to his chest. That could be explained, sort of sealing it off, maybe holding a little bit of oxygen in there. And then here you see Captain Marvel getting sucked out, even as she's sucked out of the seat. So, I don't know. Week number 2, because I don't really see how that's viable, how she would really survive that with that taking, but whatever. So, Captain Marvel transforms into an energy form so she can survive in outer space instead of being in her human form. We see that Dr. Cather in a Wraith form is sort of dead, floating in space. Star Fox is able to get the ship stable, and they all head back towards Earth. We get a scene change. We're now back with Captain. He's got a plan to deal with the Wraiths that were moving in on him, and he's coordinating with someone via his watch radio. So here you can see the Wraiths are still there sort of looking for him. He was able to dip and dodge out a little bit. Come out, human. Meet your fate. You cannot stay hidden from us forever. So they're searching for him, and the captain thinks, yeah, I don't intend to. This is Big Eagle. As soon as you're in position, ... So who knows we don't really know at this time who he's communicating with, but he sort of has a plan that he's working on. So he dips and dodges around till Wanda ends up blowing a security door into the Wraiths that Cap sort of gets gathered up. So he exposes himself to the Wraiths, sort of hops around them to keep them occupied, gathers them up, and then Wanda blows this security door and takes out the vast majority of them. There's only one left, and then Wanda takes that one out with a little bit of her magic. So we get a scene change. We're back at the space station. The Avengers are bidding farewell to the new head of military security at the base. The Star Fox has also apparently set up some new Wraith detecting technology so that they can keep an eye on if any new Wraiths show up around this base. Nick Fury also shows up. His arm's in a sling, which I'm not sure why. And he states that, upcoming issues of ROM are actually referenced, that he says that they sort of have the Wraiths on the run. So I know we had Nick Fury in one of the previous issues in this series. And I'm not sure if the reading order, if anything fell in between this, but I don't really know why his arm's in a sling, and I didn't really get the feeling that they had them on the run from the previous issues. So we'll see. We'll see if any of that gets exposed when we read a few more issues. I think we go back to Rom next, and then we've got some X-Men or something possibly later in the series. I think we got like 5 or 6 issues of Rom coming up after this one. So, you know, Nick Fury states that the Shield will actually be leading up Wraith War activities going forward, and this is per the president, who we had heard in previous issues was actually Ronnie Reagan at the time. The Vision isn't happy about this, but he keeps it to himself. Apparently, the Vision has plans on expanding the Avengers, which we see here. So, you know, Captain's there telling old Nick Fury, if you boys need a hand, don't hesitate to call. And then we see, you know, the Vision. I'd hoped that the authority over anti-Wraith activities would fall to the Avengers. I had not anticipated this. It could seriously undermine my long-range plans. I shall have to take steps to ensure that there are no further setbacks. Nothing must interfere with the expansion of the Avengers. So then next issue, the Vision goes to Washington. Hawkeye finds his dream house. The Wasp and Star Fox crash a very strange party, and Captain Marvel confronts her family. Whatever, you don't want to miss this. So this is the end of the Wraith War crossovers. I guess we get to see a little more on, you know, what Vision has planned for next. He's going to Washington, so it'll be interesting to see if that has anything, you know, if any discussions take place around the Wraith War. Hawkeye finds his dream house. So, you know, that actually leads into the last panel. So this is the panel right before our final one, and the final one's kind of a scene change where we see Hawkeye and Mockingbird on a hotel balcony, and they're looking over the city of Los Angeles, mentioning they are looking for a chunk of land for a new Avengers headquarters. So this is the sort of backstory or subplot number 2. The first one, we're not too sure what's going on with Bova, Quicksilver, and Lockjaw. And then we're not too sure what's going on right now with, you know, Hawkeye and Mockingbird looking for a new base, as well as Vision trying to expand the Avengers. So maybe there was some of this prior to these 2 issues, but I'm not sure. I've got some of those older ones, and we'll see as time goes on when I read those if there's anything that leads into further explanation of that. But for right now, we don't know. And then the issue ends. So, you know, the cover's cool. I dig the cover. You know, even though Captain Marvel's face is sort of all kinds of funky, that sort of draws to me. But overall, I like the cover. The writing is so-so. You know, I don't want to rag on old school Roger Stern, you know, popular dude, wrote lots of cool shit. But there are some holes that sort of stand out that, you know, I wish were explained a little more. You know, some of the reasoning and, you know, backstory for why some things happen, they just sort of happen. You know, the Quinjet just happens to be there, but you have no idea how it got in there. You know, Rom never shows up. So it's a Wraith War event, and you get some Wraith activity, but there's really nothing to do with Rom. So it's okay. Would have been cool if we actually had Rom show up in here. You know, he's mentioned, and these enemies are Rom level enemies, but it is what it is. So overall, it's another so-so for me. You know, I think next up we've got another Rom issue, but so far crossover-wise, the Incredible Hulk was a little weak. These 2 Avengers issues a little weak. You know, I see what they were trying to do, but it doesn't really, it's not as hardcore as some of the other issue or some of the other crossovers like, you know, Secret Wars and Inferno and, you know, Mutant Massacre, all that stuff that, you know, the stories are really intertwined. These are just sort of lightly linked. So it's a so-so for me. If you got it, pick it up, read it. You know, let me know your thoughts if you've read this issue. If I missed anything, comment down below. As always, feel free to give me a thumbs up if you don't think this video is horseshit, and you know, subscribe if you like. That would be definitely helpful. And until next time, peace.